Today I want to take you along making a hardcover from scratch for my junk journal I was challenged to make by my friend Shariqa using only the vintage ephemera that she sent me. Welcome, it's Barbara from Vienna, Austria. If you happen to stumble upon this video first, I suggest you watch the unboxing with all the information about the challenge first. You can find that video linked below. So if you remember from part 1, Shariqa had mentioned in her instructions that I'm allowed to make a cover, but it needs to be La Mère et l'Enfant, which is this here. So this is going to be my cover image, but I actually want to see a different image first when I look at the cover. The cover is obviously very important. It's the first thing we see of a journal. So if that doesn't spark joy, then you're not even going to be motivated to open it up. So I needed to find a solution where I can keep to Shariqa's rules, but obviously I need something that's going to spark joy in me. So what I'm going to do is make a hardcover, and I'm going to put a panel on top of the cover like I did with the challenge that Shariqa sent me last year with the journal I made, which I really adored, and I haven't done one since, so I think this is a great opportunity to do that. And the cover image that I want to see first is this one, because this is just so gorgeous. Obviously, if you're making a hardcover, you're not going to have this challenge. So you use whatever images you want, but I think this will be a fun version of a cover for you in any case. So the first thing I want to do is cut out this image. Actually, first I'm going to take this off. I think that will make it easier. So now I have an even border all around. And for my back cover, I was contemplating this, but no, I just can't do it. But I could use the back side. Why not? So I want to trim this down to the same size. So I have my front and my back, they're the same size, and now I'm going to mount them on some cardboard. This is some packaging. It's very thick and sturdy, which is great for a cover. If you don't have cardboard, which is this sturdy, you could take some other packaging like from cereal or pizza, and I would then glue probably 3 onto each other to make a really nice sturdy cover. So in my case, I can just use this and cut out the same size as my image, unless I of course want to have a border around it. So I will mark where to cut this. And now I can cut 2 of these panels. So I have my front and back cover panel, and now the question is, what do we do with the spine? From time to time I get the question, how do you make a junk journal? Do you start with the signatures or do you start with the cover? There is no rule. You do what works best for you, which is probably not the answer that a beginner is looking for. So in this case, I'm starting with the cover, and I'm going to make a decision of how wide I want my spine now without having put together my signatures. But a lot of times I prefer making the signatures first, and those will then determine the width of the spine so that it doesn't become a gator mouth. But in this case, I know I'm not going to be adding bulky ephemera, and I am going to adjust my signatures to my spine to prevent this gator mouth situation. I would suggest as a beginner, try both and see what works better for you. I always used to do the cover first, and then a lot of times I ran into the problem with the signatures not having enough space. Also, having a hard cover gives you less flexibility with the width of your journal than if you have a soft cover, because a soft cover, of course, is more forgiving. It can bend the front and the back cover a little bit, but a hard cover is very unforgiving. So once you have that set, it is what it is. So I'm going to take another piece of this cardboard, and I'm going to make a 2-inch spine, which is approximately a little over 5 centimeters. How did I come up with 2 inches? I would say that's experience. A lot of my journals have 2 inches. I think that's going to look very nice and proportional with the size of my cover here. Once I have all of my panels cut out, before I add my images, I want to sand down the surface because this is kind of a glossy surface. If you have cardboard like this, obviously you don't need to do that. I think that the images will adhere better if this is more rough. And also I want to make sure that along the edges, none of the yellow will peek through. I have this sanding block, which I got at the hardware store. So in particular, I want to make sure that all of the yellow is gone from all of my edges. By the way, if you do the sanding, I suggest you use a mask because there is so much fine dust and you don't want to breathe that. And I think a mask is very easy to find these days, right? So I'm wearing a mask right now. That's why my voice sounds a bit different. While I still have my mess here, since I don't want to clean up twice, I should take my mask off. I should probably also think about the panel that I want to add on top of the cover for this photo, and I'm going to make that the same size as the other panels because I want to completely cover that. You could also make it smaller, of course, if you have a cover on the back that you would like to show more of. But in my case, I want to cover it completely. So I'll just cut out another one and sand that down as well. By the way, another great alternative to cardboard for your covers would be book covers. So if you have any hard book covers that you don't need anymore, books you wanted to donate maybe anyway, you could just cut those apart. Those would be even better. You just want to make sure you have a really nice sturdy cover that is not going to warp. So I've sanded down both sides of all of my panels, and I'm going to adhere my images now. And I'm going to do that using my Liquitex matte gel. You could also do this with Mod Podge. You could use a glossy Mod Podge if you want a glossy cover. I like my matte, especially for vintage images. I think the matte works better. You could also use some thinned down glue if you want. I'll just cover the panel completely with the matte gel. And you don't necessarily actually have to cover your image with anything if you don't want to. I will use the matte gel on top as well because this image is quite delicate. It's vintage, so I definitely want to make sure this is protected since it's my cover and it will get some wear and tear. And I also want to be sure that I seal in the edges well. Here I see it's coming up a little bit, so I'll just put some more in between. And of course I want to make sure I don't have any bubbles or creases anywhere. So my front is done. I can let that dry, and I will do the same thing for my back cover. I dried these with my heat gun, so they are good to go. They're nice and matte. They have warped quite a bit, as you can see here, but not to worry because we're going to adhere paper on the other side as well. So it will probably warp back. And for the inside, I'm going to use pages from the same brochure or magazine. And for the front, I'll use the first page. And for the back, I'm going to use this last page. So I'll just cut those apart. Originally, I thought I could just glue them down and then cut away the excess, but I don't think I will manage to get it on straight if I do that. So I think I need to cut them down to size first. And through the light, I can see where I need to put it so that it's straight-ish anyway. So once I have those cut down, I'm going to adhere them in the same way. By the way, If this is maybe your first cover you're making or your first journal, then please don't have the expectation that it's going to be perfect. Please don't compare your first journals with what I'm doing here, because I've been doing this now for about 5 years and my first journals were a complete mess. But you have to go through that stage in order to make better journals. And mine are far from perfect, nor do I care for them to be perfect. That's not my goal. And even after 5 years, I am still learning something new with each cover I make, with each journal I make. I think this is something that is stopping a lot of you from even starting, from even trying your first journal, because you're intimidated and you're thinking, oh, it's not going to be as nice. But you're going to learn so much from it. And with each journal, you're going to get better and you're going to not make the same mistakes. You're going to make new mistakes, which is so much more fun. And you know, it's about the process. It's about the learning. If I wouldn't learn from making these journals, I would be so bored and I would have stopped a long time ago. But because each journal is different, because I'm always trying different techniques, different materials, it keeps me so interested and intrigued that I have so much joy every time I make one, because no journal is the same and it's just so much fun. But if you never start, you're never going to get better, and you're never going to figure out what it is that you like or that you don't like. So what I'm trying to say is just jump in and try something. And if it goes wrong, then be grateful, because that means that you've tried something new, something that you didn't know how to do, and you learned from it. I think those are the best experiences. Because if everything would be perfect the first time, well, where's the joy or the fun in that? You want to be challenged because you want to grow as a crafter, as an artist, as a person. And we don't do that if we just keep making the things we already know how to do. I would really love it if you would leave a comment if you have recently made your first journal. And how do you feel about your first journal? I would love to know. Or if now finally you feel like you want to give it a try. Because after all, what is it we're doing? We're just having a little bit of fun at our craft desk or wherever it is where we're doing this. And we don't have to show anyone. This can be our secret. I'm not going to tell anyone if you mess up your first journal. You don't have to tell anyone either. But it would make me so happy if you are a viewer who has so far just been watching other people make journals, but not having made one yourself. So just do it. Please, please, please just do it. It would make me so happy. So I'm making sure that all of my edges are sealed in, no bubbles, no wrinkles, and all of this needs to dry. It's about an hour later and I've had these two panels underneath some heavy books. So now you can see they are completely flat and ready to go. So they're covered on both sides. We have our spine, which we now need to attach, which I'm going to do with some fabric. This is fabric from a blouse that I have bought, I think, for €1 at a flea market a long time ago. One strip is a little wider than the other. The one that's not so wide is going to go on the outside. The reason why it's not so wide is because I didn't want to cover up too much of the cover. I did cut it a little bit taller than my book because I like when it peeks out. And as for the width, you want to make sure that you have a gap. You don't want to have them like this because we need room for the cover to move. So we need to leave a gap of approximately 1/8 of an inch, or let's say about 2 millimeters. And then we need a fabric strip that is going to go over that gap, like maybe, I don't know, this much, whatever that is. And on the inside, I have a piece that's a little bit wider, maybe about 1 centimeter, because on the inside I don't really care that there's no image I'm covering up. So I want to make sure I'm using the maximum width that I can to make my book sturdy. And next we have to make a decision about how we're going to sew in our signatures. Are we going to sew them right through the spine, or are we going to make a hidden spine by sewing the signatures onto another piece of cardboard first, which we're then going to glue onto the inside of the spine? For this particular journal, I decided I'm going to sew right through the spine, meaning I can already adhere everything. So I'll start, I think, on the inside. Which side do I want? On the outside. I'll take this on the outside back cover, and then this is my inside. Actually, I first just need the middle piece. So I am going to take my bigger piece of fabric strip, which is this one, and I'm going to adhere it to the middle here. I could just keep using my matte gel, but in this case I'm going to use my textile glue. You could also use a regular craft glue or something like that. So my brush is wet, which will thin down the glue a little bit, which makes it a lot easier to spread. I'll turn this around and center this. Then we can adhere our two panels. So I'll add some glue here on the edge. Take my brush. So I will turn this around and make sure I leave that gap. Like that. And then I can take a bone folder and go into that crease from the other side. And do the same thing for the other side. Always double and triple check that your panels are the right way up. I cannot tell you how many times I've messed that up already in the past. Again, leaving that gap, turning it around, using my bone folder for that gap, and then spreading the fabric. Okay, so that's our inside. And now we can adhere the outside. So again, I'll add the glue. Try my best to center that. Again, take my bone folder. And now we can adhere the rest onto the panel. So we have our cover. It opens super nice and easy and flat. This needs to dry now. And in the meantime, we can make the panel. Maybe I should have mentioned that. I chose this pattern because I think it goes really well with the blues in this photo. So this was our panel, which is the same size as the cover. And this is the photo I want to have on the front. Obviously, we need to do something with this space right there. And looking at this ephemera that I got from Shariqa, which I'm supposed to use, I remember there was this gorgeous handwritten letter here. I just love the handwriting, and I thought, wouldn't that look really nice underneath the photo? I really like that. So what I will do, rather than cutting that around, I will adhere it so that I can actually wrap the edges around. Oh, yeah, this is gonna be difficult because, as you can see, it's so old that it tears. Hopefully we'll manage. So that will go around, and then I need, of course, another paper on the back side because we'll be able to take this panel off. And there was another handwritten letter, which was this one, written with a fountain pen, 1948. And it says, Mon cher fiancé, my dear fiancé. Oh my goodness. So this is probably a love letter. So I think this would be really cute. So this could be the love letter that she received or she sent. I think you should probably be able to tell if this is masculine or feminine. I think this is the masculine form. Let's see if we can see from the signature. I cannot read the name if that's a woman or a man, but I'm guessing if she writes ta petite, like your small, whatever her name is, then it's probably a woman who is written to a man. Okay, so it's her writing to her fiancé, so that will be on the back of her picture. That's perfect. So part of this letter then can cover this once we folded that over. Firstly, we need to cut the letter down. I would love to be able to still see this date, even if it's just on the edge. It's so hard to cut an original letter like this, but Shariqa said I have to use the ephemera as it is. And I'm of course losing this beautiful backside, but what can I do? Don't think about it too much, Barbara, just do it. Okay. So trying to be very careful with this paper and gently bending it. Then I can cut the edges. Not the edges, the corners. Then I'll add some glue here. I'll again use my matte medium. You could use regular glue, but whatever glue you use, make sure it's not going to warp your paper. Very, very important. Something like the Beacon 3-in-1 glue, or in Europe, the equivalent Collall glue, spelled Collall. Same thing, cheaper and easier to find than the 3-in-1 glue. So then I'll put this on. And then I'll go ahead and adhere all of my edges. Make sure to put some glue along the edge there. And be gentle if you have antique or vintage paper. Take your time doing these steps. Don't try to hurry it up because you want to get to the more exciting part. That's what I always used to do, but it really pays off to take your time, do it with care, and then you'll have a result that you're really happy with in the end. This way you get really nice corners and edges. It's of course bending again, but again we're going to put another paper on top. So the front is good, and now for the back, I just need to cut out a piece of this letter. So again, I'll just hold it against the light. I want the Mon cher fiancé right on top in the middle. And then I'll cut a little bit inside these lines. And finally, we can adhere this piece onto our panel on the back side. I would like to go over this also with the matte gel, but I'm not sure how the fountain pen is going to react. So I'll take a piece that I cut off so that I can try that out. I would always do that if you're not sure how it's going to react. I'm so happy I tried it out because look what happened. So that means I'm going to leave this as is. It's the inside of the panel, so I think it should be okay. Yeah, I didn't do it on this one either, actually. I think I'm just going to leave this. Because once we open the journal, this is going to be just put on the side. So I think this cover is going to get more wear than this panel will. So our photo goes here. I never like adding my focal point, if it's in a rectangle, onto another rectangle just straight. For me, that doesn't have enough dynamic. So I always like to tilt it a little bit like this. And instead of just gluing the whole thing on, I always think it's fun if we have a tuck spot here in front as well. So I want to just glue it down on these two sides, but I also want to add some machine stitching because I plan on adding quite a bit of stitching on my journal pages. So I'll go ahead and stitch all around the photo and then we'll glue that down. I just used a simple zigzag stitch. And before I glue this down, I also want to think about, do I want to add anything else? Like maybe we could use some of the lace that Shariqa sent me. So she sent these two beautiful pieces. So either this one, or this one. Really hard choice. Both are very different. Both are cute. No, this is too girly. I like this one, and I think I like it a little bit shorter. And fray it a little bit. Yeah, that's how I like it. And I'm going to sew this on first. So this is what it looks like now with the lace. And I can now glue it on this and this edge. For this, I'm now using Collal glue or 3-in-1 glue. I'm not putting the glue here on the stitching because it would come through the holes, and I don't want that. I would add a button or something, but I don't have a button. I mean, I have buttons, but there were none in Shariqa's kit that she sent me. And I'm not allowed to use anything else, so I can either come up with something that I can make with die cuts with some of the paper she sent me, or there was also a key. And why is this not sticking? I know why it's not sticking. It's not supposed to stick yet. I put this on prematurely. Let's wipe this off. Because I want to sew on this little key. And I don't want to sew through my panel. I just want to sew through the photo. Maybe here. And we could try adding a die cut of a feather underneath. These are the Tim Holtz Sizzix Thinlits 666003. I will link these for you below. And I can use this packaging that was in Shariqa's pack. I can use this right here, which is a nice neutral color. If you want to do something similar and you don't have the same restrictions that I do with this challenge, you could use a real feather as well. That would be really cute. So I think I want the smallest one, or this one, because it's really raggedy. Might look weird, but I want to give it a try. So I'll take it. I realized that this rectangle is too small for the feather, but obviously I can just use the back side. What a cute feather. Oh, I love it. Oh yeah. Maybe a second one even, So here's the second one. Yes. Do we even still need the key? You might have noticed that up until now I haven't inked up any edges. And that was on purpose because I don't think I want to do that with this journal. I think I want to just leave things as they are. I'm going to glue these down. This time I'm going to try a regular craft glue. And I just want to adhere them a little bit because I'm going to sew through them. I just want them to stay in place while I sew. So I'm going to take my awl and make 2 holes to secure the key. One here and one here. And then I can sew it on with some black thread. I left a little tail on the back side so that I can just tie it off at the end. I'll just go around the key a few times. I think I went around 4 times. It feels secure. And now I can just tie the 2 ends together here in the back. Okay, I'm happy with that. So let's try the gluing one more time. And this time I'll use my craft glue. In the meantime, looking back at our cover, what do we see? Something we don't like. We see the yellow coming through here. So the lesson that I needed to learn from this cover is that when you use white fabric, make sure that you have something underneath that you don't mind showing through. So what I should have done is covered this spine first, either with a page like this or with just regular coffee dyed plain paper. So what can we do? We can run away and cry. Which wouldn't help much. No, that's not an option. We're going to make this work. So the only other piece of the same fabric that I have that's long enough is this one, but it's not wide enough because it has such a weird shape here. I think this piece was underneath the arms, so it's really weird here on the side, which is why I cannot use this whole piece as it is. So what I want to do instead is I'll just cut a piece that is as wide as the spine itself. And then I'll glue that on top and then we're good to go. Always a solution. So once more, I'll add my fabric glue to the spine. On the inside, it's fine. There's a little bit showing here, but that will be covered up by the signatures. So this should now be fine as well. By the way, in the meantime, I messaged with Shariqa because of course she is curious to see what I'm doing. I told her I had to find a solution where I could comply with her rules, but to have a cover that I would be happy with. And she said she knew I wouldn't be happy with this cover because it's not my style. So thank you, Shariqa, for this additional challenge. Okay, so we'll have our panel on here. And our panel will also function as a closure. And the way I want to do that is by punching 2 holes through the panel. I'm going to have some twine going around the cover, and that's also going to go over the postcard. So I don't want the twine to go right over her eyes. That would be a bit weird. But it can't be too far on the top or the bottom because that would just be weird. Oh, I could make the hole right through the feather. Why not? So I'll take my crocodile. I'll use the big hole. I'm going to say this again. I always say this. If you're a beginner and you want to get into junk journals, invest in one of these crocodiles. It is so worth it. You will not regret it. Now we need a second hole at the same height. You could measure if you really wanted to. Then I'll take 2 eyelets. What color do we want? I think silver actually is good in this case with the blue. So I'm going to put some books in here to mimic the signatures so that we have the shape that it's going to have in the end. So we have our panel and all we need is some twine. Let's try it this way. We go in from the top, then come out again. I'm guessing there's more than one way to do this. And then we can just wrap this around. I'd probably want it twice. And then we could just tie it here. Or what if we try it the other way around? We come out from the front, do it here, put it back in, and then wrap it around. Doesn't really matter. And then we can just tie a bow here. So that's the journal cover, including a closure. These would be the signatures. That's our back side. And that's our spine. I would love for you to join me on the next junk journal adventure in which we're going to add some signatures using only authentic vintage European ephemera. Love you guys. Mwah! Mwah! Here's to the good days. Here's to the sorrows. If this is a mistake, I know about tomorrow.
I don't wanna fight no more, cause I don't feel the need no more, no. Just wanna make it stop.